All right, folks, here we go. Today we're breaking down exactly why Kelley Krauskopf's recent press conference wasn't the love letter to Coach Sides some folks thought it was. Instead, think of it as the professional equivalent of a breakup letter. It's like something straight out of I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor, a polite but unmistakable, I'm moving on, and it's not you. It's definitely me, but also a little bit you. The Indiana Fever are making big moves, gearing up to take their team to new heights, and a new coach was essential to that mission. Let's dive in.
I certainly wasn't, thinking of this as an option at the point in my career where I am, but I'll say Mel Raines is a good recruiter. I'm going to have her help me with some free agents. So I'm really grateful to Mel, to Herb Simon, the Simon family, for trusting me to be the steward of the franchise again.
Let's start with Krauskopf's new leadership vision. Here's the thing. She wasn't just thanking the Simon family for the chance to return to the Fever. She's laying down her new long-term vision. Being the steward of the franchises is a bold statement. It's like saying she's the new captain steering the ship. And if you're steering, you want a co-captain who's right there with you strategically, every step of the way. And from the sounds of it, Krauskopf just didn't see that alignment with Sides.
The NBA is such a mature league. I mean, there's so many great takeaways. I think, I went into it with eyes wide open. What can I learn from this experience? What can I add? Learning from them, everything from just the level of the business of the contracts, all of the ways that you can put teams together. Those are things that I'm going to be ready for, because as we go into a new CBA or we go into potentially a new way to do business, I'm going to be ready for that.
Moving on to reason number 2, NBA experience. Krauskopf talked about how her years in the NBA prepared her for a new way to do business. Basically, she's implying that the Fever needs someone who can handle big league pressures, major roster decisions, and let's face it, the stakes that come with the WNBA expansion draft and free agency. If you're going into battle, you need a coach with a playoff-level mentality, someone ready to handle the kind of intense strategy that comes from top-tier leagues. And Sides? She just didn't have that NBA-style edge Krauskopf was looking for.
Because we're about winning. I mean, this is a winning franchise. We've had constant success of winning and being in the playoffs. And, my plan is to return us to that level of consistency.
Let's talk culture. Krauskopf made it crystal clear. The Fever aren't just looking to make playoff appearances. They're out here looking for championships. It's like when you play Monopoly. You're not just in it to pass go and collect $200. You want Boardwalk, you want Park Place. You want the whole freaking board, don't you? Krauskopf knew it wasn't enough to have a coach who could keep morale up. She needed someone who could build a team of champions. A winning mindset isn't something you wait to develop, it's all or nothing. And Sides, unfortunately, just wasn't hitting that championship-ready mark.
The veteran leadership that Kelsey was able to provide, we need to help her. We need to add to that. I spent a lot of years just trying to add experienced players around Tamika Catchings.
When Krauskopf says veteran leadership, she's talking about serious experience on the court like Kelsey Mitchell. She wants players who have been through it all. Players who know how to dig deep when it matters most, as experience is added around Caitlin Clark. And she's expecting the coach to know how to work with those veterans effectively. Think of it like a football team trying to win the Super Bowl. You can't just throw in a rookie coach and expect miracles. Krauskopf wanted someone who could integrate seasoned veterans seamlessly, and that's an area she saw as too big of a gap for Sides.
For me, we're both going to be talking to agents. We're both going to be talking to the team. We'll be making those basketball decisions together, but, and certainly have our scouts out and making sure that we're covering what we need to cover.
All right, now we're getting into the heart of the business, the expansion draft and free agency. Krauskopf specifically mentioned working closely with Amber Cox on these moves, which means that a cohesive, experienced strategy is non-negotiable. Bringing in a new coach later would have been like cramming for an exam on game day. And with Sides still figuring out her head coaching playbook, it was clear that Krauskopf needed someone who could hit the ground running without stumbling over big decisions.
I used to tell our players, Caitlin Clark was 10 years old when we won our first championship. I say first because we're going to have another one at some point. But this is the moment where, there's generational, it takes a generation sometimes to kind of get to that next level. And I would tell our players, look, we're building this for someone else. We're building this for someone's 10-year-old daughter right now.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Krauskopf isn't just thinking about this season. She's thinking about the Fever's impact on future generations. By focusing on Caitlin Clark as a foundational player, she's looking for someone who can develop talent in a way that leaves a legacy, not just a season highlight reel. Think of it as building a castle versus building a sandcastle. One lasts, one doesn't. Sides, unfortunately, wasn't positioned to deliver on this long-term vision.
I mean, this is a winning franchise. We've had constant success of winning and being in the playoffs. And, my plan is to return us to that level of consistency.
Let's get real about legacy. The Fever have a reputation to uphold, one that doesn't settle for anything short of excellence. Krauskopf's comments about returning the Fever to a high level of consistency show she wasn't content with just some progress. She wanted to return to the Fever's golden days. It's like having a Ferrari and settling for driving at 30 miles an hour. She wanted that Ferrari back at top speed. And with Sides, it seems she felt the Fever were still in the slow lane.
And look, Amber and I, we're both, as general managers, she's going to be doing a lot of the day-to-day groundwork. For me, we're both going to be talking to agents. We're both going to be talking to the team. We'll be making those basketball decisions together.
Alignment. It's huge when you're dealing with high-stakes decisions. Krauskopf and Cox are clearly a team, ready to tackle the expansion draft and free agency. Having a head coach who was fully on board with the new front office's direction was essential. Bringing in a new coach now sets that alignment into motion early, instead of trying to sync up later. With Sides still building her playbook, Krauskopf knew the Fever needed someone who could jump right in with the new front office game plan.
What a roller coaster ride for her. I was smart enough to know that the schedule was stacked against a young team early in the season, and the way that they weathered the storm, got into a groove, after the Olympic break. I mean, I think she finished 18-12, after those first 10 games, and then of course went 7-4 in the last 11, and 3 of those losses were against teams in the finals. So for a young team to make that kind of progress, I mean, it's hard to not be impressed.
Krauskopf's description of Sides' leadership as a roller coaster ride says a lot. She was essentially hinting that while Sides managed to keep the ship afloat, there wasn't the kind of steady growth and stability that champions are made of. It's like going to the gym and only doing random exercises without a plan. You might build some muscle, but it's not going to be a sculpted physique. Krauskopf wanted a coach who could bring more consistency to the Fever, not just moments of progress.
To make sure these fans are important to us, that we want to sustain the growth and the interest level in the franchise. I mean, this is about the Indiana Fever. Yes, we have a foundational player in Caitlin Clark and Leah Boston, and we're going to continue to add to that. But I want this team to be the leader in the country, and a brand, an enduring brand, like Apple.
Finally, let's talk branding. Krauskopf is all about growing the Fever into a national powerhouse, not just a playoff contender. She wants the Fever to be mentioned alongside iconic names. Sides, on the other hand, didn't have that kind of high-profile presence that could draw fans and media attention to the Fever on a grander scale. If the Fever are going to hit that next level, Krauskopf needed someone who could drive that momentum forward. So there you have it. 10 reasons why Krauskopf was planning to let Coach Sides go long before the official announcement. Every comment she made in that press conference was like reading between the lines and giving you the tea. Now drink up. The Fever are clearly positioning themselves to take things to the next level, and it's going to be fascinating to see who they bring in to lead the charge. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the deep dive, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's keep the conversation going in the comments. Who do you think the Fever should bring in next? Until next time, keep ballin'.